welcome to another episode of the Dewatch Black Mirror podcast. I am your host, Jorgen Smorgasbord.
And I am Jim with a G. And
who is also your host.
Yeah, I'm also a host.
We're co-hosts.
We're co-hosts.
This is a cooperative endeavor.
And today I am forced to be here as unfortunately some hackers have obtained footage of me singing to my cat.
That's right. Secrets that must never see the world, or otherwise our social lives will be destroyed.
Indeed. Oh.
Now, today's episode is called Shut Up and Dance, which I thought would mean more, because I thought there was going to be a flash mob. There is not a flash mob in this episode, dear listener.
Wait. But this was released in 2016. That's not that far off from like Harlem Shake and shit. That's like 2-3 years off.
A bit more, I think.
Maybe.
But yeah, well, dear Jim, do we recommend this episode?
Yeah, I think quite fairly for me, actually.
I'm leaning no.
Really?
It's unpleasant.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like, this is one of those you probably shouldn't watch if you have an anxiety disorder, but, you know, I think this is a very good episode, personally.
Interesting. Well, why don't we just get into what the episode is about?
There is no dancing. We should put a content warning that it is a full lie.
Yeah, content warnings for... just check out the episode's content warnings for this one. It's a heavy one.
Oh, yeah, I suppose that's also true. But also deception in terms of title.
Editing Jorgen here. Despite the general recommendation to check out the episode's content warnings, I do want to flag two things especially, which is that we end up talking a lot about pedophilia and suicide in this episode. Also, we slander Jerome Flynn as having weird politics, and as far as I can ascertain from some broad Googling, that is baseless. He seems to be a little bit into environmentalism. Good on him. That seems to be pure fabrication on our part. Cheers. Yeah, but yeah, now to dive into the summary of the episode.
We have a fella.
Yes, we have a young gentleman who works in like a fast food restaurant, and we're introduced to him as a sympathetic character after like a brief sort of pre-credit scene of a lady parking a car with the keys somewhere, and thereafter we see him have a little bit of a fight with his sister over her constantly taking his laptop, and he installs a lock on his bedroom door, and then he jacks off in his room at his laptop. And because his sister was trying to pirate movies, she installed a virus on his laptop.
Yeah.
And
it has, like shuffled all his text as viruses are known to do.
Oh yeah, no, this is real early conveying what computers are. We haven't quite figured it out yet. We haven't quite figured out conveying what's going on in the computer.
Yeah, it's 2016, not a lot of people had computers back then.
Yeah, no, this is a weird flashback because it's so close yet so far. And he gets blackmailed over wanking because someone recorded him, and it's like, oh no. And he gets blackmailed specifically into going somewhere and taking on a cake, which he is blackmailed into delivering to a guy, a very stressed middle-aged man. And they are then blackmailed further into together robbing a bank. And that does happen. Away. And then they are split up again after some hijinks. And in the end, they are split up, and our protagonist, whose name I've forgotten, and Kenny. Oh yeah, it is Kenny.
Yeah.
Is made to fight a pedophile in the woods to the death, on account of the blackmailers.
Yeah, and how come he fights a pedophile?
Well, because he's being blackmailed, and then he walks away, and we get the twist like, oh man, he was a pedophile too all along, and that is why his initial sympathetic introduction as giving a toy to a kid suddenly turns sinister, and him installing locks in his room and not wanting his sister to take his laptop suddenly seems a bit more grim. And this episode pretty much concerns itself with two very British preoccupations, that is surveillance and pedophilia.
Yes, I think those are fair summaries. I will say, I think this is actually an okay application. This is not going to be good as a soundbite. I think this is an okay application of pedophilia as a plot point. Genuinely.
Yeah, because we were wondering during the episode, like, hey, this guy just, like, wanked in front of a camera. Like, this is not very...
But it is...
He's blackmailed into robbing a bank. Like, I would bail at that point.
I think the writing on this episode, I find, is very competent, because it does point this out early, like, what, you just had a wank? But he's like 18, 19, if even that. So it kind of makes sense immediately.
Oh, no. Like, it fully, like, the initial, like, scene of him panicking, like, just, like, to, like, a fully, like, at the time, what seems like a bit irrational degree.
Yeah.
Like, see, like, that's, like, fully, like, that's, like, 18-year-old behavior. It's more like 16-year-old behavior.
Probably.
But, you know, I think the character has to be older for the pedophile thing to be worse.
Yeah, and I think, like, there's a really nice thing about specifically the bank robbery, right? Because when that happens, he starts freaking out and saying, I can't do it. And he is suicide bullied by his fellow blackmailee into getting into it. Like, there's some additional pressure.
Yeah.
And he is also, like, using the fact that, like, hey, if my infidelity gets out, my life will be ruined. So I think they have done a very good job, like, not, like, doing things that, like, okay, yes, clearly it is a bit weird that he's doing all of this because he got caught wanking, but there is enough context around there that actually, class it up very well.
Yeah, we're given, like, enough crumbs to, like, suspend our disbelief, and in the end they go, like, oh, no, he had very good reason to not want his pedophilia to come out on the internet. And, yeah, no, like, it's a very... I'm trying to ascertain what the fuck this episode is about.
I think it's about vigilantism.
Maybe.
I think, like, and I was even going to propose, I think this is one of those times where Charlie Brooker did pulse the nation with his finger a little bit.
Well, I mean, British people are just, like, at all times... like, low-key fired up about hunting pedos. That's just something they're, like...
Also celebrating them occasionally, but, you know.
Well, I think those things sort of work in conjunction.
I suppose. But I think this is, like, one of those things that, like, to me, this strikes me as a very good, you know, exaggeration, as fiction often is, but still, like, a well-done exaggeration of, like, social media witch hunts. A little bit, right? Like, about stuff that's real... but where it's a question of, like, how much punishment does this person deserve? Because I think at least in, right, like, where this is, at the start, we are given the, like, coding of, Kenny's, like, a good dude. Like, he has, like, a little bit of, like, a sassy relationship with his sister. He's nice to kids, you know, brackets, this will become important later on.
And sadly. He has, like, he seems to have, like, a good relationship with his boss.
Yeah, like, it codes the way that, like, all teenage characters are good if they are shy, and he's clearly shy. So we're good on that front. And then it hits... So, like, we have this, like... I think you go through this episode with a bit of, like, righteous, like, what the fuck? This guy is just a poor kid. Like, leave him alone. And then it hits you with... pedophilia. Like, the one thing that everyone is like, let's murder him. And I think it is, like, genuinely, like, a good moment of, like... How do you feel about this now? Because it strikes me as one of those things, like, I've seen a lot in online spaces where it's like, I'm against the death penalty. Unless, you know, like, and a lot of those similar things were like, I'm against this thing unless it happens to a person I consider bad enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what this episode is about. To me, at least. Like, that's how I read it. And it feels like, sure, a lot of these processes have happened in 2016. I'm not saying this is coming from nowhere. But I feel like it, especially with, like, more short-term content like TikTok and the, like, increasing radicalization in the world, like, this feels prescient a little bit. Like extending to what degree these sorts of, like, witch hunts and, like, online meted out punishments come out. I think the protagonist should have been a woman, because it seems to happen a lot more to women than to men. But hey, like I'm
Yeah, I think this episode is probably correctly choosing not to go with the much more, like, less socially, like, or like less in the social consciousness present notion of the woman pedophile.
Yeah.
Because
it needs to anchor it into the cultural imagination.
It needs to, like, tap into that sort of cultural, like, frenzy.
Yeah. But, like, I do still think it connects very well to that idea of, like, I don't think bad things should happen to people just for the sake of retributive punishment. Unless...
Yeah, no, and, like, I was, like, at some point during the episode, I was like, hold on. Or, like, this sort of, like, what seemed at the time to be, like, leading up to a bank robbery does not seem very well planned.
No.
You know, it's like, these people are, like, given their extremely tight timelines, and, like, if you were, like, trying to make sure all of this flows smoothly, surely you would be planning with a bit of buffer. But what in retrospect seems to be quite clear is that this is, like, more or less like a torture device for them. And in the end, like, the media is released anyway.
Yeah. And I think that's like a big point about it, that the point here is not actually to do crime, it's to punish criminals. And like or even non-criminals, right? Because we have the example of someone who's racist, is hinted at in the credits.
Yeah, a racist CEO, a black guy who's, I guess, just, like, into, like, pervert stuff.
Yeah, ambiguously perverted. And, like, that could be a lot of different things. That could just be someone who's gay and has, like, an unaccepting family.
Yeah, no, like, that, it does not sound like he's supposed to be read as a pedophile. Because, like, for a second when trying to parse this episode, I was like, hold on, are they all supposed to be pedophiles?
Right, yeah.
Because, like, the Jerome Flynn character, the middle-aged man who is just, like, running around during, like, the bank robbery quest, like, he is saying that, oh yeah, no, I wanted to hook up with a 20-something, which, like, in retrospect would be very easy to read as, oh no, actually all these people were pedophiles. The only one who, like, definitely unambiguously isn't is the racist CEO.
Yeah.
Which,
who's the only woman, by the way, which is worth noting.
Yeah, no.
we were discussing alternative explanations for why our dear Kenny was so concerned about his wanking being leaked, and we were discussing the possibility that perhaps he just has a weirdly shaped dick.
Yeah, which I don't think is that generative as content, to be fair, unless we want to just purely riff on that alone. But yeah, no, like, it's... Like, it seems to be quite clear, actually, like, with the addition of the racist CEO, that no, only the two people who, like, end up in the fight to the death are supposed to read as pedophiles.
Yeah, and I think, like, there's, like, an implied scaling here, right? Where, like, the pedophiles fight to the death. That's real bad, right?
Yeah.
The person who is being unfaithful with a prostitute gets to be part of a bank robbery.
No, he never sleeps with it. He never has sex. He just sends dick pics to a catfish.
I suppose, but he was planning on it.
Yeah.
He was very much, like, intent on doing it.
Yeah.
So fair enough. But yeah, that was going to be unfaithful with a prostitute.
Aspiring to be unfaithful.
Aspiring
and then not managing to be unfaithful.
Man, that's gonna suck.
Yeah.
But I also, I feel like we should do... I wish there was an episode on Ashley Madison, because that seems like aspiring adulterer is the tagline of that website.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point being that he who is still like doing something definitely immoral, right? Like he gets to be part of a bank robbery, but then he gets to go home, right? Like it's bad.
Yeah.
Like that's very stressful at the absolute least.
But it's not a crime.
Well, the bank robbery is a crime.
The bank robbery is a crime,
but the
but not
adultery.
wanting to
Yeah.
sleep with like an well,
A
I guess-
29-year-old, which is where
prostitution isn't legal in England.
I don't think so.
Um,
No. Okay, so there's crime, right? But like,
you know,
It's
it's
definitely-
regular crime.
yeah, it's stuff you can be like, oh man, you shouldn't have done that. But it's not
Yeah.
like it's not the let's start the international witch hunt sort of
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, he gets to go home after that. The racist CEO seems to just be like hiding stuff and setting things up. That doesn't seem that bad.
No.
And finally, supposed pervert man also
Yeah.
just seems to deliver a cake. So there does seem to be like a genuine like, oh yeah, like these people have set up a hierarchy of moral sins and what should be done to punish
Yeah.
these people.
Fully. And
Like I think that's interesting, just on its own, right? Because it implies like what's it called? Commensurate. There is a good word here. but,
commensurate punishment.
yeah, sure. Like commensurate punishment implies some degree of justice in the reptile brain of the way our humans think about justice.
Yeah.
But it's still just random dudes deciding this. Sorry, I'm being sexist, but like random people who are messing around with like malware who get to decide this, right?
Yeah.
And like catfishing. Like this is not sophisticated.
Well, it does seem like a very sophisticated, like, planned situation.
Right, but it's not like it demands exceptional resources. It's just here's a network of like people we blackmailed
Yeah.
through hey, would you like to see my boobies?
Yeah.
Like that's the level of
It does.
honeypotting we're
it does
dealing with.
strike. Oh God, I'm going to commit the sin of cinema sinning for a second.
okay.
But it strikes me as slightly incoherent that they catch this random pedophile by like infecting his laptop via movie piracy.
I suppose.
Like surely you would be like pedophile-images.exe you know, to hijack your laptop. Surely a more direct targeting would be
Yeah,
appropriate there.
I will admit that maybe the setup there is a little bit because like
But it works in the moment, and like it only like falls apart upon like retrospective
Yeah.
inspection.
like
And
I'm
not
trying to
that
think
much
of this
either.
because I think it's unclear if it is actually that or if it's the like antivirus program they download. Like I could see that.
Unclear, but
think,
like
the way they
SEO hacking an antivirus program in order to like
It's there's some
target a
steps.
particular pedophile seems very bizarre.
Yeah, like it is an interesting comparison to our dear what was his name, Jerome Flynn.
Jerome Flynn.
Jerome Flynn, just being like, hey, we're trying to catch people who are adultering by being on a would you like to hire a prostitute website. Like
Yeah.
that's a bit more.
That's extremely straightforward.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a good argument there.
Yeah, no.
Sadly, I think pedophile-images.exe might. I don't know. Like I think it might not be foolproof either.
I mean, you have to, like, suspect that, like, pedophiles as a group of the population are, like, more adept at cybersecurity than most.
Yes, maybe. Like, I could see them being kind of blasé about that. Oddly enough,
Maybe. I guess it
I will
doesn't
say,
give
like,
us much to speculate.
I was remembering this episode because I was kind of looking forward to this episode and seeing your take on it, Jorgen. But like, I did know that like the hey, my sister stole the laptop on which I have my child pornography. Like, I was expecting a bit more acting there to be like, hey, what the hell, you can't do that. Like, never do that. Like, it is quite mild. It is like quite convivial.
He does install the lock.
That's more in line, yes.
Yeah,
but I was
like
expecting more emotion in the moment, I suppose.
Well, yeah, no, I guess we are kind of dealing with like a fairly practiced liar.
I suppose. And I suppose, like, once you go to your sister having stolen your laptop and she's not, oh my god, like, what's... Yeah, like, you're probably like, okay, I guess we're safe this time.
Yeah, I guess the most, like, incriminating thing I can do is overreact.
Yeah. Which, like, I think it'd be fair to overreact to, but yeah. Like, anyway, the specific characterization aside.
But yeah, like... But here's the thing, right? We in retrospect understand that this episode is about vigilantism, which I think is like a reasonably strong read. I don't like that as our only lens, because we do not know this until the very end, and therefore we cannot do any interpretive work to that end while we're soaking up all the information. We're just sort of like thinking about it a bit in retrospect.
I will say, this is like kind of a strange episode in one way, which is that I think the vast stuff definitely happens in this episode, right? Like, I think this has a very good pace to it, but I don't know if all of it really contributes well to the theme, because for a while it is just them fucking with him, and like, you know, 10 minutes into the episode, you understand the plot point. They are fucking with him, and they continue fucking with him. And, like, it's like, where it really escalates, I guess, is the bank robbery.
Yeah.
And that's a point, right? Because that's like where we go like, this guy is really committed to not, like, getting his wanking images out there. But, But again, there's some massaging there from our boy Jerome Flynn. Sorry, not our boy, because apparently he's weird.
I think so.
Okay, I hope that's correct, because now we've said it on mic, and it's gonna suck.
You said it on mic. I'm not subscribing to anything on mic.
You said yes to it. You're in it now. Anyway.
I'm not affiliated with Jim's statements here. I want to make clear that if Jerome Flynn is weird, I haven't independently confirmed that. That's Jim alone on the defamation case, please.
Do you think you can get sued for saying someone's
in
weird?
Britain, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, true. We're not British, though.
Yeah, no,
Thank
I
God
don't
for
think
that
they
one.
can get us. Like, they left the EU, fuck them.
But so at this point, there is some... Because it's weird, because I don't want to call it wasted time, because that's not... Like, it has the thing...
Yes, like, what I was, like, thinking about is, like, this time isn't wasted, but what is it in service to, right? Because we are given a fairly, like, by-the-book rundown of, like, oh no, you've been hacked, and you've been blackmailed, and it's conveyed quite viscerally, and I do not know, like, and this is why I was like, I'm struggling to find a theme here. I do not know what, like, this quite, like, visceral depiction of, like, being dragged into things you don't want to because you're being, like, image blackmailed is in service to. And, like, on its own, it's like an interesting piece. It's like, we can be like, I wouldn't want that to happen to me. I better not download freemovies.exe.
And also not pedophile images.exe.
Well,
but if that's your thought, you should turn yourself in.
Yeah, no. There's probably better help than getting fucked with by internet people.
I want to analyze this, because we are pretentious wankers at heart. We like to analyze things from the thematic lens.
Speak for yourself. I'm a down-to-earth enjoyer of regular media.
Would you say you enjoy a cold beer and a nice game of football on a Friday night?
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
How about monster trucks?
Could be into them. I think I'd be into monster trucks.
I'm glad to hear that, Jorgen. I was pretty close to calling you Jim. But yeah, like, I think if we let go of the purely thematic lens here for a moment and think about it just in the terms of what emotion does this inspire?
I mean, like, it makes us, like, afraid about
Anxious,
Yeah,
right?
it makes us deeply anxious, and it makes us, like, also sympathetic to the later revealed pedophile.
Yes, I think the sympathy is already well established. I think a big part of this is the anxiety, right? Like, um, I don't know. How do you feel about Jerome Flynn, the adulterer character here? Like, do you feel sympathetically with him?
Um, I
Right? That's a
think
tough one.
so. He's a bit of a dick.
Yes,
But, you know,
undoubtedly, he does.
he's under a lot of pressure.
I think it's hard to sympathize with a character who goes, "If I was you, I'd kill myself." Add that to the trigger warnings for this episode.
Yeah, this I guess like, we will have to put this in separately because I don't know if like trigger warning websites will warn for suicide because it's not fully on screen, but it comes up multiple times.
That's actually a very good. Yes, actually, yeah. There's even
They
a scene
straight up
imply it. Yeah, that Kenny's about to do it.
they don't imply it. They show him failing because the gun's not loaded.
Yeah, I guess that is a suicide attempt. But yeah, anyway, going back to Jerome Flynn for a moment, like, I think he's an interesting character, right? Because he's a sweaty, tipsy boy throughout all of this. He comes off as a little pathetic. Like, maybe not as pathetic
Yeah.
as our main boy, but also, like, he's got, like, probably 40 years on him.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be close, right? Like,
Yeah, fully. I know, no, more like 30.
maybe, yeah. But, like, the point being, right, like, I think it's an interesting character to look at, right? Because he's like, I was straight up planning to cheat on my wife with a prostitute, but I was just gonna do it once. I was bored, but I really care about my kids, right?
Yeah, no, like he's a deeply believable character and he's very interesting, right? Because like he holds this plot together when Kenny is like fully falling apart because his like defining character traits are horny for like younger women,
Yeah.
which I guess isn't that defining, but it's inciting in a way, and extremely capable under pressure.
Oh yes, like he
He
takes the
drives
actions.
better when he's drunk.
He is, but like I think it's very interesting, right? Because we meet him when he's like
At his lowest.
yeah, like his first actions to like, oh shit, this is gonna get leaked to my family is I'm gonna down like 2 bottles of beer straight up, probably hard spirits almost, I would say.
It's ambiguous to me what's going on there because like the way I sort of read it was like, oh no, he's been told to like wait there with like insufficient information.
I think he's been told to wait there by his
Yeah.
prostitute.
But I
That's implied because he doesn't seem like he understands what's going on until.
yeah, which would also be bizarre.
I don't think so. Like, I think he's waiting for the prostitute. He hears, like, a guy be like, I have a cake. And he goes, please don't look at me. I'm gonna be having sex with a prostitute.
I suppose that makes some sense, yeah.
But yeah, and then he, like, retches and vomits in the hotel toilet. Like, I don't know. Like, there's something to that, to, like, looking at, like, yeah, this guy is clearly kinda shit. Like, a good bit down the asshole meter. But, like, he's not irredeemable. He's not like
No.
like there's a moment where we think he's abandoned Kenny, but no, he's like nah, like we're sticking.
Yeah, no,
out.
we're getting a bit bait and switch, but he is just like fully being like a good getaway driver,
Yeah,
and like he handles the getaway well. Like the major problem he has is just like not being sufficiently open with his wife.
yeah, essentially, right? Because there's very much like a moment where you could think he could go home, say, hey, I was gonna sleep with a prostitute and I regretted it.
Yeah, no, like
And I didn't do it, which is, I think, an important bit here, right? Like, that helps. I'm not gonna say it exonerates him, but it does help.
yeah, no. To be fair, I didn't do it because a young man who was blackmailed showed up
With a cake, though.
with a cake.
And that's persuasive stuff.
Yeah. No, I was kind of worried that it was going to go in a very different blackmail direction for a minute.
Do you think they were gonna have sex?
I genuinely was like worried that was kind of where it was going, yeah.
Really?
I don't know. It was very opaque.
I suppose. That's fair. I don't know what I thought about it the first time I looked at it. Either way, like, I think it is, like, interesting to look at him, because I feel sympathetic towards him, but it is like bobbing up and down, right? Like it's kind
Yeah.
of the like, does he deserve this though? Like,
Obviously not.
yeah, like
Well,
robbing a bank seems like a lot.
well,
Like a bit of punishment for like trying to cheat on your wife. Like I don't think it should happen, but like in the context of fiction, I can kind of be like, yeah, like a little bit. Like if I'm listening to the reptile brain.
like the main reason why I think I'm sort of somewhat wrongly steering away very hard from he deserves this is because he like basically like drives Kenny to his death.
Yeah, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, it just involves him in some very evil events. You know,
Yeah.
like he doesn't know it and he doesn't like have agency in it. It just like makes the whole thing like more foul.
I suppose. I think the implication is that he doesn't get got for that though.
No, it just makes it more foul to me. Like,
Yeah, I suppose. Like there's an interesting thing here, right? Like where I think the argument, if you do X, you're just as bad as that. You know, the like, oh yeah, you know what I mean.
I don't.
Okay. Oh, if you punch a Nazi, you're just as bad as the Nazis. I'm not I'm not a fan of that argument.
No.
But there is something to be said here of like how much suffering these people inflict, right? Like
Yeah, like
the
they
hackers.
straight up drive Kenny to attempt suicide.
Yeah.
And then they also drive him to kill a man.
Yeah, and like I think even if we skip the pedophile part, like the stuff they do to Hector, to these like random other people, like it's a lot, right? Like there's something to be said, I think, for dirtying your hands like that. And I think it's it's an interesting like analysis there of like, for how long do you go, yeah, this guy kind of deserves it? What makes you think he does deserve it? What makes you think he doesn't?
Well, we can't think about that because we're told too late.
In terms of the pedophile one, yes.
Yeah, but like
I think even for Hector, right? Like he just straight up goes like, yeah, I was gonna sleep with a prostitute and cheat on my wife. We have a family together, a family I kind of love? Question mark. At least the kids.
yeah, he definitely loves his children. Unclear. He is not worried about the wife. Like,
Yeah.
he's not worried about his wife leaving him. He's worried about his wife taking the children.
Yeah.
And he is fully correctly convinced that she will get the children in family court.
Yeah.
Which, like, after his presumably, well, I guess he wasn't driving in his own car, so the extremely hazardous driving he does probably won't come back to bite him.
Yeah.
Probably, like, actually, like, the worst thing he does in this episode alone is just, like, almost run over multiple people.
I suppose. Yeah. I will say the first pedestrian he almost runs over was looking at his phone as he was crossing the street. I think that's a
at
little
an
bit.
unmarked location.
Yes,
Too.
I think that's. I'm not gonna say I think that person should have been hit by a car, but if something happened, I kind of think it was more on them. But trolley problems aside, sorry, there's a lot. On one hand, I feel like we've
It's
been
a dense episode.
It's a dense episode.
But to, like, circle back to themes for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry I said circle back. That's very corporate of me.
I mean, it is a bit. Let's talk about the synthesis of this episode.
To circle back to themes for a bit, like, there are no themes until the very end. Until the very end, we're just, like, on an anxiety trip.
I mean, I do think there's a little bit, at least, like, starting to set it up with Hector, with Jerome Flynn. I think that's a setup that gets us thinking, like, yeah, like, this guy is shit. Like, he loves...
Does it? Like,
I think so.
I don't know.
Like, perhaps this is you know, like a little bit of hindsight, but I do think it's setting up, like, yeah, the guy is shit. He doesn't love his kids more than he loves banging a 20-year-old prostitute. But does he deserve this? Like, I do think that is something that one might consider while watching the episode about that.
I don't know. Like, he's just having a... Like, we're never given to suggest that the bad time is, like, a moral result from his actions until the very end.
it doesn't. I don't think it needs to be in and of itself, right? Like the language of cinema, like we do on some level expect characters to, at least in the long run, get what they deserve.
Ah.
At least very frequently, like
In Black Mirror?
maybe not in Black Mirror, but like I think it's enough of like cinematic language just in general that we go like, yeah, this guy on the bad side tried to cheat on his wife, like, and as consequence on some cosmic level,
He has to drive a car.
yeah, very very hard,
Yeah.
and he has to pay for gas.
Like, on the whole, like, really the pun, like, circling back again to your question whether he, like, gets, like, commensurate punishment. Like, no, he just has to drive a car and be stressed. You know, that's not that bad. You know, if you want to, like, cheat on your wife, that's probably worse than having to drive a car. Like, you know, having to drive a car and deal with a, like, stressed teenager for a day, you know, probably not, like, sufficient on, like, the big scales of Anubis.
Perhaps not. perhaps Anubis would weigh him against the feather and find him not wanting.
Yeah, I think Anubis would just go like, "Ah, man, you should drive a couple more rounds to really get that karma gone."
I suppose there's a fair point that like Hector could probably have been more involved in the bad stuff.
Yeah, no, like he doesn't suffer that much.
He does, yeah.
Like he's just very stressed.
Yeah, I suppose there's some. I suppose it's like more the overhanging anxiety about this person. These people know that I was trying to cheat on my wife, right? Like, and fair anxiety, right? Like that seems.
Yeah, no, like people being like actively made to have a bad time does not happen until the end. Until then, it's all like very clearly in service of like some very like elaborate plot to deliver a cake and later rob a bank.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. Like to me, I think it's like a bit ambiguous, right? Because there's something like to be said for Hector specifically being caught in the like infidelity that applies like a bit of a different layer to the whole thing, right? Because if we are at this point like believing that Kenny just looked at normal porn,
yeah,
or perhaps at worst hentai, jerked off to it, yeah, I suppose the theme is not well established. I suppose one thing I'm curious about, as you having watched this episode for the first time, when he is meeting the other pedophile and they're gonna fight, the pedophile starts going like, "How young were they? The things you looked like, the images you looked at. How young in those images were they? Like, did you at this point think that Kenny was a pedophile?"
No, I didn't think shit until Kenny was called on the phone by his mum saying, "Kenny, you're a pedophile." That is only then did I realize that he was a pedophile.
Okay, because he does like shake his head in emotion, but he doesn't say, "Nah, man, it wasn't like that. I just looked at some big anime boobs," which I suppose also somewhat frequently adjacent to pedophilia, but we're gonna skip past that.
Kenny deploying the "actually she's a 1,000-year-old vampire" defense.
Oh, no. See, I think that's a very believable interpretation of the episode.
No, I think Kenny knows what he did.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think Kenny has any rationalizations going on.
It doesn't seem like it, right? Like
no, he's just like doing what he does and feeling extremely anxious and bad all the time.
It doesn't seem worth it, does it?
No.
Doesn't it give you sympathy for the plight of the pedophiles? I'm sorry. I mean, we shouldn't say that on the podcast.
They're sick people who deserve help and should never talk to each other because they might start rationalizing things.
I suppose. Alright, fair enough. We're recovering this. Man, there's probably an argument we shouldn't put this episode up, huh? Anyway. Well, I think that scene is interesting, right? Because we get the, like, you guys have to fight to the death. Hentai watcher, actual straight-up pedophile who's very...
Well, see, where I thought this was going at this point in time, was like, oh, Kenny is being christened Executioner.
Ah, because he had the gun.
Because he had the gun. And I was like, he still has the gun. Right, that was where my mind was going. And then, like, I think, like, him trying to kill himself was, like, the first hint that was, like, not where the episode was going.
Way more was going on.
But, like that would have also, to once more indulge in the sin of counterfactuals, that would have been, like, a fully, like, functioning ending to the episode also. Like, Kenny being a pedophile genuinely makes it so much more confusing to me. Because, like, the vigilantism just does not scan to me.
Okay.
As, like, anything other than, like, pure sadism.
Well, I think that's kind of part of it, isn't it?
I suppose, but like
this is the kind of sadism that is ethically allowed by society, right? It's like, yeah. You can express these violent, murderous tendencies, these like torture porn scenarios, as long as it's pedophiles, serial rapists, that sort of like that is openly celebrated on most social media, I think.
Yeah.
Like, we have people who are like, no, the death penalty is never okay unless it's a pedophile. Or someone, or a rapist. Those are usually the two exceptions people make. Like, if you have done one of these things, go ahead. Whatever you can inflict on this person is okay morally. And in fact, cool. Should be celebrated.
Yeah.
And I think that sadism is a big part of it.
Yeah, no, I'm not, like, the reason I thought that's where the episode was going is because, I know, like, it would also be congruent with the thing to just, because, like, the whole episode, like, up to that point, to me, was about, like, the instrumentalization of these blackmailed people.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, using him as a murder weapon functionally would, like, kind of make sense to me, like, as, like, a continuation of that line of thinking. And, yeah, no, like, I think it would put, like, arrive at a very similar point, right? Because, like, if the kidnappers at that point just go, like, even, like, still, like, until a phone call, I expected it to be like, hey, congrats on killing that pedo, keep the money. Like, I kind of thought that was still the vibe, right? That this is just like, oh no, he is, like, kind of the innocent in this. And he's just sort of, like, very, like, pragmatically being used to kill this guy. Which, like, didn't fully make sense once the weapon was not loaded. But, like, till that point, I was like, oh yeah, no, like, he's not supposed to feel bad in the eyes of the blackmailers. That was what I was thinking.
I think there's an interesting view on it, because I think there is probably, like, I think one of the running themes, maybe themes is stretching it, but one of the running patterns is that, like, we have three people who are, like, the high-tier bad people. There's Kenny, there's pedophile number 2, and there's Hector, right? Like, there's Jerome Flynn, who is adulterer. Like, that's clearly a solid few steps down from pedophile, but it's still, like...
Well, he is also, like, interested in extremely inappropriately aged women.
Yeah, like, it's creepy, but...
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know, like, 20... Like, it's... Look, I'm imagining it as 29. When they say 20-something. I'm giving them the credit of the doubt. Look. But yeah, like, I think that there's an interesting point. Like, all these three people, deeply pathetic, right? Yeah. Like, sad, pathetic, sweaty boys.
Yeah.
But fundamentally also people who have done, like, really bad things.
Yeah.
Really, really bad things in two of them. Pretty bad things in one of them.
Yeah.
I think that's a way to put it. And I think that's like an interesting you look at it, because it that level of patheticness does invite sympathy just on the aesthetic of, look at this sweaty 19-year-old boy who's pissing himself while robbing a bank. Like,
yeah.
And I think that's interesting to then, like, when we get to the pedophile who is like, hey, to be clear, I got caught doing pedophilia, but I am also like this weird, like sad middle-aged man who like begs for his life when the gun comes out.
Yeah.
And I think that is an interesting moment to analyze, like, what do you feel in that moment of, like, should this guy be shot? Because, like, the implication, like, if we're taking everything at face value at that moment, we have guy who wanked to some weird shit versus pedophile who, I guess, is expecting that if he kills this 19-year-old, he gets away with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like, it's really more the, like, clear I'm willing to kill you energy that he exudes that makes me very much root for him to get shot.
I don't feel that he is doing that fully. Like to me, that guy reads desperate
Yeah.
and like willing to go through with it, but certainly like quivering as he has to do it.
Mm.
And perhaps that is not like a great, exoneration of that guy, obviously. But I do think it fits into the like these guys are pathetic, desperate.
Yeah. And yeah, no, like until like the very end, we are kind of given to where it's like I think like once we arrive and it's like, oh, this is being filmed by a drone. What is I think being implied is that like at that point that oh no, the price fight is real. And they've just like corralled like an adult who is willing to kill on account of being a pedophile and not wanting to be exposed, and a teenager who is willing to kill on account of needing to fight for his life.
And has a gun. So like arguably has the upper hand here, right?
Yeah. And clearly he does have that dog in him. Because he kills
he makes it through,
grown man.
Despite clearly like being smaller and not getting the first go in, right?
Yeah, no, he starts by running away, but in the end, he just emerges like limping from that forest.
Yeah, bloodied and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think if I'm going to conceptualize the episode, and I definitely think it's flawed, but to me, this is one of the better Black Mirror episodes we've seen, to me. I would rate it in the top 5 so far, at the very least. I think it does kind of, like, you can interpret it as kind of throwing you, like, trolley problems, a little bit. Or, like, would you feel bad now if if this guy shot this pedophile? Would you feel bad now? Like, when is it enough that you go, yeah, actually, I'm okay with this pedophile being murdered? Or, like, tortured? Or, like, so on and so forth. Like, I do think it's sloppy at times, certainly, and it doesn't perfectly, well, it quite poorly connects a lot of the runtime to the themes. I think it uses it more just to build that anxiety of being judged. But to me, I think it is quite effective in throwing the, like, yeah, when are you okay with what is happening to these people? Is there a line there?
I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, I understand that is, like, an interesting read.
Yes, but...
However, it is fully, like, this is full, like, Black Mirror having another stupid twist up its sleeve territory. Because, like, sure, like, it is better than almost all of Black Mirror because it actually, like, works to, like, set up the twist. But, like, I'm not interested in that. I'm, like... Because it's not spending its time, in my eyes, on, like, actually looking at the thing.
The thing of vigilantism and commensurate punishment. And...
So, like, just like slice of the pedophilia, right? Which is extremely easy. Just, like, have it be like, oh, no, these hackers want to, live stream a fight for gambling or whatever. Just, like, insert that instead. Like, what does the episode say now?
I think not anything about vigilantism or like social media judgment.
Yeah, and like, but like that is like the pure bulk of the episode, right? And I'm more interested in like what it has to say than in like what it says up till that point because it's very murky, but it feels a lot more visceral. than what it has to say about vigilantism. Because, like, these sort of, like, the thing I think it captures isn't, like, quite real, but it is, like, the paranoid fantasy that, like...
Being stalked, being controlled.
Yeah, and, like that... I don't know, like, I was asking during the episode, and, like, I don't know if... like, the reality is that up until that point, the reason we were keeping count of how many men were being blackmailed, because that the actual thing that this is, like, mirroring in a very weird way and sort of, like, shying away from addressing is that most of the time when this happens, it is happening to women whose, like, nudes have been leaked or something.
Yeah.
And
often, I would say, like, minorities in other ways.
Yeah. And this... So... Because... And I just, like, feel weird about, instead of, like, being remotely about, like, going near that, even though it is so in the territory, it's, like, instead diving into sort of the paranoid fantasy of, like, your computer has been hacked and you're being blackmailed by hackers who send troll faces, right? This is...
The troll face is... It doesn't stick super well in 2025.
Like, this is, like a pure media stereotype to me, which is why, like, I'm quite uncomfortable with it, because it's, like, so, like, missing in focus on things that I think are, like, more central to the themes of, like, new ways for your privacy to be breached, that it's, like, going adjacent to but not dealing with. And I think that is ultimately why I'm, like, so, like, displeased with this episode, because it's not talking about the thing I think it should be talking about, even though it's, like, parked right next to it.
I can definitely see what you mean, and I think, like, if I was to do the thing that we as podcasters do, where we go, I could write this better now that I have an entire episode in front of me, it could definitely build up something a bit more than just, like, looking at porn as the implied crime, right? Like, I think you could have gone with, like, oh, he was looking at his friend's sister or something, like something that's a bit creepier, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that could have hit a bit closer to home, because that's, like, a bit like, yeah, that would be pretty... That would hit real bad, right? Rather than just like, oh, this guy wanks. What a wanker, if you will. Editor's note, please delete that. But, you know, there's...
I'm not deleting that.
I know you're not.
I'm not editing shit. I'm putting in the intro and the outro.
But yeah, like, I think there's something to be said that they could have built it up a bit more. Like, and perhaps even have that in, like... Okay, here's my imagination. When Hector has this, like, by the way, dear Kenny, the reason I'm here, now that I'm quite tipsed up and we're having sweaty car chases...
I mean, they do just, like, straight up have a, like, lengthy heart-to-heart while they're driving.
And I was gonna say, here, Kenny says... Yeah, I was looking at pictures. Oh, just pictures like porn? Yeah, but it was pictures of my friend's sister. Then the reveal later is that sister is, like, 8 or something.
Yeah.
I think like, it's crude, but I think that's a better build-up, right? Because then you go, like, okay, like, that's definitely a step up, and then it gets worse later. But yeah, like, I think there's something interesting to be said, though, for the fact that he is seemingly completely innocent at the start, right?
Yeah.
Like, doing something that I've heard, pray tell, many do engage in the masturbation.
Not us. We're pure.
We are pure.
This is a Christian podcast.
This is a
Catholic podcast, in
Oh,
fact.
you missed a chance to say we're Calvinists.
I don't know if Calvinists are forbidden from wanking.
I thought you were going to say if Calvinists are forbidden from podcasting. Which I have to assume they are.
I feel like an unfortunate amount of podcasters are at least, like, in orientation,
yes,
ideologically very close to Calvinism.
But I was going to say one thing that does actually strike very close to home on the, like, yeah, he's innocent and he is, like, being threatened to expose that he had done a very normal thing. Like, it reminds me of random TikTok witch hunts. Like, there was There's like a
Yeah.
fairly well-known like one that about like a trans woman dancing a bit weirdly, and the responses were like, "Oh, this person is Buffalo Bill," like just pure like weaponized like cringe culture combined with random bigotry, being like, "Yeah, this person's fucked up
Yeah.
for doing something
Now
a
that
bit cringe."
Yeah, now that you say it, like the other thing that is missing from like this episode as an actually functioning, like to me, functioning depiction of like vigilantism is the fucking vigilantes. It's just like some like caps.
But we don't analyze who the hackers are.
Yeah, it's just some caps lock SMSs.
I could see that kind of being, whether or not you think it works, I could see that being quite intentional in the sense that, like, yeah, these are random people on the internet hiding behind anonymity. I don't know, like that part does kind of work for me.
It works for the story, but I don't think it works for the examination to me.
That's fair, yeah. Like it is. I do think this episode is very interesting. I do think there's something to be said that, like, there's a degree to which its structure does not work with its theme super well, because I think this is very like okay. I had a pitch here. I think this episode is the first step to making Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2, because there are some hijinks in the middle where, you know, they pick up this, like, school teacher or something, and or like parent-teacher association lady, and it's just kind of, like, wacky hijinks for, like, 3-4 minutes.
Now, my mind was also going sort of in this direction, and I would like to pitch to you the funniest counterfactual that deals with the theme of, like, breached privacy and who is probably more usually affected by that more directly. It goes the following. All the protagonists are women or queer, and they're not pedophiles.
Okay, neat.
Instead, they are actually just being used to do a bank heist
Okay.
because someone hacked their iCloud account with nudes in it. And, you know, it's sort of a girl power bonding like episode where in the end they somehow track down the blackmailers and go like, we're keeping the money. It's reparations.
I super think we could tie this into Charlie Brooker writing young adult fiction.
I think I would. No, I wouldn't like to see Charlie Brooker write that. I would like to see someone who is more restrained than Charlie Brooker write that.
That is fair. But yeah, I am genuinely curious after this almost hour of babbling about weird dicks and such. Do you still think we should, like, do you not recommend this episode?
No, absolutely not. I don't think it engages with any of its, like, subject matters in a way that I find compelling.
Okay, interesting.
It handles the sort of, like, privacy thing through, like, a pure, like, media paranoid fantasy depiction, and it handles vigilantism in the most, like, twist, like, doesn't that make you think way, like, possible without actually looking at the phenomenon at all. So yeah, like,
Do you think this is a
horrible
bad episode?
Yes, because it has a stupid twist.
Okay. Do you think it's a bad episode in the context of Black Mirror?
I don't know. Like, I guess we were, a note to the listener, during this episode, we were doing a lot of riffing.
Oh yes.
We were sort of indulging in a bit of pre-podcasting.
Yes. And we apologize for that.
Which was purely like a stress response. Or like, not purely, but mostly a stress response, because this is a very stressful episode to watch. And yeah, no, I know, like it. No, like it has. It's more confused in what it's saying, right? Like sometimes, at least, Black Mirror is like at least does the like crime of like at least touching on a bunch of interesting things. In this case, it's like it's like so like oblique in its approach to literally every subject that it's like worse for thinking about. Like I feel less capable of thinking about these subjects after watching it than before.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, next time, speaking of queers, we are watching San Junipero.
Yeah.
And
And San Junipero is for once an episode I've actually seen.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
yeah, smoke those queers.
Don't say that. This is a homo-friendly podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Also, it is said smoke those straights. We'll see you next week, listeners. Have fun.
Yeah, stay safe out there and, cover your webcam or something. Cheers.